I'm grateful to you for typesetting the tech as a benchmark, and having typesetting benchmarks is probably a good thing to do when we start doing tech in the browser seriously. To begin with, the results will be a bit depressing.
Yeah, now if one takes real current documents, technical reports, books and so on, journal articles, one thing they have that the tech book doesn't have is included graphics of various graphics formats, both PDF and bitmap formats, PNG, JPEG, and so on. And it's those really that slow down the typesetting enormously. And so my own large book on mathematical computation takes many times longer to typeset than the tech book does, but it's because it has so many figures in it that are external files. So there's considerable time involved in just consulting the file system to find the file, then loading it and interpreting it and displaying it. And that's really a lot of overhead compared to just charging through a stream of characters in a text file and typesetting them. Things that will help, of course, is getting our data moved out of file storage and into memory. And new generations of memory as well. DDR5 now is starting to appear and will be available in machines that are being manufactured this year. And that will give another 50 to 100% boost in memory access speeds.
I think the great thing about typesetting in the browser is when you typeset and you've got a figure, JPEG or something, you may have to do a very quick inspection of the figure to determine parameters required for typesetting. Now, when you produce a PDF, you've got to copy that whole figure into the PDF so that the browsing software, so that it can then be rendered. But if you're typesetting in the browser, then what you can do is you can produce an SVG, and where the figure goes, you produce a reference to the figure. So you don't actually have to copy the figure. And that does the job for you. And here's the proof of the pudding. If you don't preview the document, it doesn't cost you anything at all.
That's right. It's sort of like being in the DVI mode instead of the PDF mode, where what goes into the DVI is the name of the object, not the object. But if you produce PDF, the whole object goes in.
Yeah.
And graphics files can be rather large. I mean, I have colleagues who deal with Arctic ice research, and so they have very large, high-resolution photos taken from satellites and onboard ships and so on. And these can contribute many gigabytes of data to a document that might be only 25 or 50 pages long and would otherwise fit in a few hundred kilobytes.
Are you saying, Nelson, that the text in the document is only the tip of the iceberg?
Exactly. It is. It really is. Yeah, and it is definitely a problem. And people have, with web browsers and word processors and PDF and so on, have become accustomed to having the idea that a picture is a normal part of a document, but they never think about, well, how big is this picture? I mean, for example, this page in today's journal issue today, roughly that page is an image, but I will bet that in the PDF file that produced that, it's much, much larger than the text on the page. And if data were free and transmission were infinitely fast, nobody would care. But in fact, it really is an issue. And we do need to have better ways of storing graphics files that aren't so data intensive.
Yeah, when I was a child, I was told that one picture is worth 1,000 words. And that may be true, but also one picture costs as much as 1,000,000 words.
Right, and 1,000,000 words is a book.
Yeah,
actually, right. It's more than that. It's 1,000,000 characters is a book. If you think of a book page as roughly 50 lines of 50 characters, a 300-page book is pushing a megabyte of text. So a rule of thumb is a megabyte is a book is a good one to think about. And so if someone says, well, I have this PDF file of my document and it's 3 gigabytes in size, immediately alarm bells should ring and you should say, this is totally out of proportion.
This is to some extent related to the problem of archiving, which is that archiving of things that are genuinely text is relatively straightforward compared with archiving things that are images.
Mhm.
I think it's probably time to come to conclusions. I feel as though we've had a very nice discussion. I'm very grateful.
And I will happily tootle off to a late lunch and then my next meeting this afternoon.
Thank you very much, Nelson.
Thank you, Jonathan, and we'll see you next week.
Okay, then.
So long then.